Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today. My name is Adam Saprasky. I'm the broker for Cardinal Realty Group, and I'm also an attorney in Florida. I specialize in real estate law and real estate transactions. Just a little disclaimer, I want everyone to know that this is supposed to just be a guide, okay? Anyone out there who's actually purchasing a property or selling a property, or if you're a real estate agent, this is just meant to be a guide. Please seek legal counsel, seek the advice of an attorney. It's always wise and it's always recommended. So anyways, today we are doing a contract to lease. Okay, this is not a lease. This is a form that you're going to fill out that pretty much says, I as a renter, okay, I as a tenant would like to lease your property as a landlord, okay? I would like to rent it from you. And these are the basic terms that are gonna be in the lease when we draw up the lease. And if we can agree on these basic terms, then we can pretty much agree to a lease. The rest of the terms are just small. Okay, so these are gonna be the main terms of the lease. It's called a contract to lease. And as you can see on the top line here, it says this is not a lease. A lease should be signed before occupancy, okay? So, just like any other contract we've done so far, the first part are going to be the parties to the contract. So the parties here are going to be the landlord and the tenant. Okay, that's the relationship between the parties in the contract here. Okay, so our landlord in this scenario that we have, we've built up here, our landlord is going to be John Doe. Okay, and just like in the other examples we've done with buyer and seller, except this one is landlord and tenant, the tenant is going to be Mary Doe. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. Our landlord is going to be John Smith, just to make things a little bit easier and less confusing. And our tenant is going to be Mary Doe and Jake Doe, a married couple. Okay? And we went over that in the other contract. If you're working with a married couple, you would like to put their names and then put comma a married couple. It's less important when doing a lease, but it's still important nonetheless, and you want to make sure you have it there. Okay, so agree to execute a lease agreement no later than, all right, so this is saying, okay, landlord, I would like to execute a lease agreement with you. Has to be executed no later than. Okay, so if today's October 22nd, we would like to execute this lease by next week. Okay, so today's Thursday the 22nd. In the next week, we need to execute this lease. We'll give it 1 week, okay, by October 29th. And this is by no means standard, okay? This is all situational, and this is all going to be depending on your specific situation. Okay, some people don't have a week. Some people only have a day. Anyways, moving down. Who's going to draw up the lease? Is the landlord going to draw up the lease, or is the tenant going to draw up the lease? And keep in mind, this is just an offer that we're making. So we're going to offer that we're going to draw up the lease. Okay, I'm the tenant in this situation, or I may be the agent for the tenant in this situation, and I want to draw up the lease for my tenant because I want to make sure the lease has the most favorable terms for my client. Okay, so moving forward, hopefully, if you've gotten to this part of the process where you're actually making an offer on a property, on a rental property, right? You're an agent, you've shown all these listings to your client, right? They finally said, you know what, agent, I want to make an offer on this property. I want to rent here. I like this place. Here's 1 month deposit. It's a $3,000 a month rental in my hypothetical, right? And they've given me a $3,000 deposit to hold with my escrow company. And actually the escrow company that I happen to use is Bay Title Company, and they're located in North Miami Beach, Florida, where I happen to work. So I will place $3,000 and we will hold it with Bay Title Company. We will get a letter from Bay Title Company saying that they are currently holding the $3,000 deposit for our tenants, Mary Doe and Jake Doe, a married couple. Okay? And you're going to present that letter, that escrow letter, with this offer to the landlord so they can see how serious you are. Hey, we really mean business. We've even made a deposit, okay? And the property address we've been using here in section 3, 123 Main Street, number 2105, Miami, Florida, 33162. How is the property going to be coming? How is it going to be coming? Is it going to be coming unfurnished or is it going to be furnished? Well, in our hypothetical that we're using, Mary and Jake, they have their own furniture and they're renting a property that was unfurnished, okay? But if it was furnished, you would want to do what we did in our previous example and make an exhibit A, right? You would take a piece of paper, write exhibit A on the top and write inventory list next to it, and just write down all of the furniture that's going to be coming with the property, okay? And submit it with this lease. Okay, so, and on this line is also very important, and I'll read it to you. The property will be used for only residential purposes, okay, not commercial, and occupied by only tenants and the following persons. So up here we have Mary Doe and Jake Doe. Okay, so we don't need to repeat that here because we already know that they are the tenant. But what if there's other people that are going to be living with them? Actually, Mary's sister, Jane, will be living with them. And they also have a 19-year-old son who will be living with them as well. So these are things that you want to put on this line here. So who's going to be living here? Well, we're just going to make this disclosure now so that there's no issues down the road with the landlord. We're going to put Jane Doe, and Scott Doe. All right, Jane is Mary's sister, and Scott is Mary and Jake's son. Okay, so we are including them here because we want to make sure that they have full access and full rights to the premises. Okay, lease term. Well, the lease term is actually going to be, since today is October 22nd, hopefully you're giving yourself enough time to, since we already know that our property 123 Main Street, number 2105, happens to be in a condo, okay, you're going to need to give yourself some time for condo association approval, which usually could take about a few weeks, maybe even a month in some places, okay? So we gave ourselves a few weeks. Today's October 20-something. We're going to give ourselves till November 15th. That's going to be November 16th, Monday the 16th. That's going to be when our lease begins. It's going to be a 12-month lease. So you're going to count 12 months till next year, which is November 15th, right? So November 16th, 2020, and the lease will end on November 15th, 2021. That's a one-year lease for everyone out there who could not count. Paragraph 5, money due before occupancy. Okay, tenant will pay the sum of, and if you notice, it's not letting me fill in anything here. I can try to type, but it won't let me because this field will automatically fill in when I fill in the fields down here, right? Typically speaking, in South Florida, when someone wants to move into a property and they want to rent a property, they're going to have to pay the landlord first month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit. Guys, this is just typically speaking. I'm not saying this is always. By no means is this going to be for everybody's transaction. This is very, very situational. However, a lot of the times in my experience, I have seen first, last, and security be a requirement for move-in money. Okay? So, first month's rent, we said this is going to be a $3,000 a month rental. And the lease is going to start on November 16th. So guess what? That's when the money's going to be due. November 16th. I'm going to give them the money and they're going to give me the keys. And that's how things are going to work. All right? And then we are going to skip this next line and we're going to go down here to last month's rent. Right here, I'm highlighting it here. Last month's rent plus applicable taxes. Okay? That goes right here. $3,000, and it's going to be due November 16th, the day I move in. And finally, we're going to put a security deposit. You can see that's the next line here of $3,000. And once again, it will also be due on November 16th. Okay? Moving down, the paragraph 2 deposit will be credited as follows. Okay? This is situational, guys. In my own experience, I usually credit it towards the first month's rent. I know some people do it differently, but for the sake of this video, we are going to put $3,000, credit that towards first month's rent. Okay, that doesn't mean that you can't still get paid directly from those closing funds. It is a little bit tricky, and we will get into that in another video. Moving down, number 6, rent payments, taxes, charges, tenant. Rent payments, taxes, and charges, and then here it says tenant will pay total rent for the lease term of, right? So you're going to take that $3,000. So it's a 12-month term. It's $3,000 a month. So what is 3,000 times 12? $36,000. Okay, so it's going to be $36,000 for the entire lease term. This isn't the reason that the landlord is getting into this lease is for this $36,000. Actually, it's not really for the $3,000 a month. It's for the $36,000 in the year. If that makes sense to you at all, I hope it does. So next line, tenant will also pay taxes on the rent when applicable in the amount of, and for this specific lease, it will be $0. Okay, some people are charged taxes. You don't see that often down here in South Florida, but it does happen. All right, and this is how the installments are going to be paid. We're going to check off monthly, right? And it will be on the first day of each month in the amount of $3,000, right? Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, we moved in on the 16th. How's that going to work? We're going to prorate those 14 days into our first rent payment. Not a big deal. Don't freak out about that. I don't have a pet. I do, but in this hypothetical, I don't have a pet. And we are going to put pets are prohibited. Pets are prohibited. So just know that moving into this property, you're not going to be allowed to have a pet. Okay. However, if you did have a pet, you would want to click pets are permitted. All right. And maybe give a little description. Small dog, under 20 pounds. Or maybe you have a huge dog. You would put large dog, over 50 pounds, right? You want to disclose things. You don't want anything to be a surprise later on. You don't want to move in and then the landlord comes and says, hey, you never told me you had such a big dog, right? Yes, I did. I put it right on the offer. Large dog, over 50 pounds. Okay, so no surprises, guys. No surprises. Anyways, guys, moving on from the pet section, going down here to smoking. If you smoke, you would want to check permitted, right? If you don't smoke, you would want to check prohibited. Most people are not going to let you smoke in their property these days. Okay? Anyways, moving down to section 9, utilities. Generally speaking, utilities will be the responsibility of the tenant. When you move into a property, you'll need to call FPL, you'll need to call your local water municipality supplier and sign up with them. Okay, now if not, if this is going to be on the landlord, this needs to be stated here in section 9, and I'll just read it to you guys. Tenant will pay for all utility services during the lease term, connection charges and deposits for activating existing utility connections to the property except for. So if there was something here that was going to be the responsibility of the landlord, like let's say you agreed that landlord would pay for water, then you would say except for, and you would put landlord agrees to pay for water and sewer, right? Because that's the agreement that we may have made with this specific landlord. This is very situational. So just know that that's where that goes, okay? I'm going to erase this. All right, and moving on here to section 10. just like section 9 of the kind of the opposite, usually the landlord's responsible for maintaining the premises. Okay, so let's just read this here. Landlord will be responsible for maintenance and repair on the property except for, right? So if there's anything that the landlord is not going to be responsible for, and there's something that the tenant agrees to maintain and repair, then that is going to go here. Oftentimes you'll see if the property has a pool, the landlord will say, you know what, tenant, if it's fine, you can rent my house, but you have to maintain my pool. Okay, so you have to get a pool man and make sure that he comes and maintains it regularly. If that's the case, you would type in here, tenant agrees to pay for pool maintenance. Okay. All right. And sometimes you'll also see maybe a tenant will agree to pay for pest control. So if that was the case, you put and pest control. Okay. So stuff like that that you would put in that section. If the tenant agrees to maintain something, it needs to be disclosed right here in section 10. Section 11 talks about association approval. Okay, if you're applying for a association approval, if you're trying to rent in a condo where there's no association, most likely you'll need to be approved by that association. Okay, so who's going to pay for that application that's not refundable? It's usually $100 or $200 around. Well, generally the tenant pays for it. Not always, but most of the time the tenant pays for it. And actually, you're drawing up the offer, so you can offer whatever you want. I'm going to offer that my tenant will pay for it. Okay, so that is the offer we'll make here. And if the application fee is $100, then you will just type in 100 here. Okay, and you have to make approval by a certain date. Okay, make application for approval, not actually get approved, but you have to at least get out, start moving. Like I've mentioned in my other videos, time is of the essence, guys. There's never any time to wait and sit around and wait. Okay, when you have a real estate transaction or a lease transaction, okay, you need to move quickly. Okay, so if you have to apply for the association and you just made this offer and you got this offer accepted, well, there's no time to wait. Even if today is the 23rd and you give yourself till the 29th, right, to apply for the association, don't wait. Don't sit there. Get up. Go apply for the association early. Okay? Because time is of the essence. Also, guys, just a little tip about the association information. Oftentimes you will see that the application fee price and the maintenance dues are listed on the MLS listing as well. So just a little tip, you can find some information there a lot of the times on the MLS listing. Moving forward to section 12. Section 12 is additional terms, and that's actually a little touchy. For all my real estate agents out there, stay away from section 12. If anyone wants to put anything in section 12, that's going to have to be written in by your client or by their attorney. Okay, so stay away from section 12, guys, please. Number 14, section 14. This is a little bit interesting. If the prospective tenant is a service member as defined in Florida Statute 250.01. Okay, so are they in the military? Most likely is what that means. If they are, you will check yes, right? And you will need to disclose that to the landlord because there are certain requirements that the landlord has to abide by if the service member is called to duty. Okay? I'm not going to get into that right now, but just know that this is where you will check off whether or not you are a service member or not. Okay? And that's about it. Going down here to brokers. The brokers involved in our transaction today for the prospective tenant's agent's name is going to be me. I represent the prospective tenant. My name is Adam Saprowski, as I mentioned earlier. My company is Cardinal Realty Group, and we are going to put 5% next to our name, right? We want to make sure we get paid 5%, and we don't want to leave it up to chance. We want to put it in writing, okay? So also Oleg is going to put 5% here. Okay. All right, and I believe that takes us to the end of the contract to lease. most importantly, make sure you have your clients sign. Okay, the prospective tenant will sign where it says prospective tenant. And guess where the landlord signs? Where it says prospective landlord. Okay, you can put your client's address and email there just for notice purposes. And that about wraps it up. One last thing, guys, very important, actually on this signature page. I know it sounds pretty trivial, but it's actually really, really important. Make sure that contract is signed by both parties, okay? You could run into some trouble if your client is the only one who signed it and the other party did not sign it, okay? So you're gonna wanna get that final copy signed by both parties, very important, all right? So that about wraps it up for today's lesson. I hope you guys learned something. Once again, this is only meant to be a guide for you guys. Please seek legal counsel in the future when you're doing stuff like this. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a lot of useful information here. And thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.